Welcome to the Space in Between podcast, a series where we will talk about everything and anything mental performance in a bite-sized fashion.
I'm Sienna and I'm here with Frida. We are both certified mental performance consultants from Ireland and Sweden. On this podcast, we share our knowledge and passion for all things sport and performance psychology. This includes all things mindset, exercise, sport, everyday life, and insights into how we help ourselves and others with developing our mindset. All right, Frida, what are we talking about today?
Today, we are going to talk about athletic identity. And to put that in simple terms, who are we when our jerseys or cleats, if you want, boots, when they come off? Who are we without our sport?
Interesting.
Very.
So if we think about athletic identity in like what it is, even going deeper into that, is who are we without it, but also like how closely attached are we to it? Because that can determine how we see ourselves without our sport.
Yeah.
You know, so we can have a very strong athletic identity, or maybe we don't feel that attached to our athletic identity.
Yeah. In life, we have different identities, right? So our athletic identity can be a part of who we are. And like you said, that can be stronger or weaker depending on how much we identify with that athletic identity.
Yeah. And I guess what we want to explore is how it can impact us, when it can be helpful, when it can be unhelpful, maybe even problematic or difficult when we do have a strong athletic identity, and maybe what we can do to see ourselves beyond the athletic identity. So to start, what are some of the challenges that come with having a very strong, prominent athletic identity?
The first thing that comes to mind is we might base our self-worth on our athletic achievements because who we are is so tied to who we are as an athlete. And if we are successful or not successful, that's going to have an impact on how we are doing. So let's say I lose, that means I am bad. Not just that was a bad performance, I am bad.
Yeah. Yeah. And like it's interesting for a lot of athletes or people who have performed in their sport for a very long time, like you start from a very young age, and let's say sport is one of the biggest things that you put time into from a very young age, like it obviously makes sense that you will be really tied to that, and the outcomes of your performances are going to impact you to the point that sometimes we don't even realize how much it impacts us until maybe something happens that we have to maybe face the music or face life without it, or, you know, go through a really difficult period in our sport. We might realize something is not right here.
And that probably won't come until later, though. Maybe that awareness or that realization. Because I think about what you said there about as a young athlete. When you are a young athlete, other people's opinion will have an impact on how you view your own identity, especially as a young athlete, right? So depends on what your coaches are doing and saying, what they value, maybe your parents, your friends. What are your parents talking to you about in the car on the way home? Given out to you because you didn't play well?
Yeah.
Yeah, like that can make it really difficult because then now your parents, let's say, are mad at you because you didn't perform well. So now we're tying that to our own self-worth.
Yeah. Or that relationship is dependent on how I perform in sport.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So the athletic identity can be nearly not just individual. It can come from different areas, how other people see you. You know, you might think, well, people just think I'm a good athlete. You know, that's what they think about when they think about me. So then that's going to mean that you have an even stronger athletic identity. And like, I think also it's one of those things that like having the athlete identity is not always negative. Like that's, you know, it's something that's important to lean into as an athlete too, like to lean into that role and want to develop it. But I guess something that maybe we don't think about a lot is that it can also cause a lot of difficulty if that's all we think about when we think about who we are as a person.
And I think, once again, going back to being a youth athlete, the importance of the people around you and how they are talking about things and treating you and treating others. So if you're a parent listening to this, you know, what are you saying to your kids? What are you showing them? Because dealing with that athletic identity, you're probably not going to deal with that when you're 10 years old.
No.
You know? But maybe when you're 16, 17, 18, going into the 20s, you know, when we get to the age where maybe we think about those things more, or we realize that there's a connection here, right? Then we might start question things and be like, or maybe it got to the point that I dropped out of sport because, you know, I didn't like it or whatever.
Yeah,
because of how I was treated.
That's also the opposite end of it too. Like, obviously, one example of dropping out of sport is because you didn't like it and maybe there was negative experiences, but also people who are completely unattached to an athlete identity, like if they don't see themselves as an athlete, they're probably going to stop playing sports. So that's kind of a case where it is actually also important to accept the athlete identity and to see yourself in that way to continue participating in sport. But obviously there's the negative side if that's the only thing you see. And as a kid or a teenager, often that does become shaped by what our parents or the people around us say or see in us.
Because once again, it's not a bad thing to have a strong athletic identity.
Yeah.
It's just if it goes too far either way, right? And we're tying our self-worth to that too strongly. So something that we can consider here, especially as parents and coaches when we're talking about sport, with youth athletes specifically, is where I'm kind of getting hung up in here.
Yeah, you're really getting...
Yeah, I know. I guess that's because it's...
Are you projecting?
No, absolutely not. It's just such important years in forming a part of that identity. But anyway, you know, I am a soccer player versus I play soccer.
Yeah, it's a big difference.
Big difference.
Absolutely. And, you know, I joked about it there, like, are you projecting? What has your experience been with your athlete identity?
I definitely do not remember any negative experience, really. Not from any outside factors. If anything, it was very internal. I wanted to be the best that I could. I loved soccer or football. I played with my friends from a very young age. You know, I loved showing up. Obviously, when you get to a certain age, like, things change a little bit because of the pressure and etc. Whatever. But then I also had that goal from a very young age of playing collegiate soccer. So that was also driving me a lot. Like right now sitting here, I can't really remember any point where I was kind of like, who am I if I don't play soccer? I definitely thought those things, but I can't remember any like significant moment that had a deep impact on me. Because even when I got tired, I knew.
You had planned.
I knew that was going to happen. So it didn't come out of nowhere to me. That doesn't mean that the transition wasn't hard still, doing that later on when I think back on how I was doing back then. But yeah, I think overall, very good. Like my mother, amazing. Honestly, all the years of me playing soccer, the most supportive person ever in a very helpful way. Yeah, definitely. No negative connotations anyway. So I think I had a healthy athletic identity. I lived for football. Like I lived for it. Probably a little bit too much sometimes, but not to a detrimental degree, like that I can remember. So that was a long-winded answer to say, good. Sienna, what about you?
I feel like I think this topic is fascinating because of my own experience with my athlete identity, especially when my childhood was sport and like performing in sport and trying to be the best at every sport that I was competing in. I definitely, when I was younger, did really seek out like external validation. When I performed well, I actively noticed the positive feedback, you know, whereas when I didn't perform well, there was like the negative feedback. So like I definitely felt that at the time. And when I got to like, I think I was 2017, I tore my ACL. And up until that point, I mean, I was an adult at that point. If we call a 20-year-old an adult, I don't know. The older I get, the more I'm like, eh. But anyways, technically an adult in college, and I tore my ACL, and then like I couldn't obviously play sports, and that really like crippled me. And even at that time, I didn't realize, whoa, this might be a problem, the way that I attach myself to sport. But I remember saying to my mother, what am I supposed to do with my life now? All I do is play sport. And in hindsight, that's really sad. And I think, and I've probably said this 25 times on this podcast, that was such a good thing that happened to me, having that year of not being able to play, because I realized nobody cares. None of your friends care that you're not playing sports. Your family still loves you. You're still hilarious.
Right. Yeah.
And ever since then, I feel like I have such a different relationship with my athlete identity. I love being an athlete. I absolutely lean into it. It is one of the most important things in my life. I want to be the best I can be, but I know that if I had to tomorrow stop performing, like, it would be difficult, but I would be okay.
You're talking about handball specific?
Handball, yeah. If I had to stop playing handball tomorrow, like, that would be sad, but I would be fine. I would figure it out, you know? Okay, I'm choosing to pursue this thing, not because of getting any type of external validation. It's just because I want to see how good I can be. And that's a very different place to come from like... And I loved playing sports too. It's not like I'm saying, oh my God, I was miserable. Like,
Yeah.
I loved playing sports, and I wanted to do it for myself as well, even when I was younger. But there definitely was, like, that's how I saw myself. Just was like completely, you know, if I win things in sport, I'm great. If not, I'm a loser.
Yeah.
You know?
So your self-worth was very much based on your athletic performance?
Absolutely. Like 100%, that I saw myself as a sports person, as an athlete, and that was literally everything. I chose to do physical education. I don't know why I called it that in college, because I mean, I play sports. I love sports. So I'll just do that, you know? So everything was about performing in sport.
I think I never had a defining moment like that. Like, an ACL injury is very defining in athletic career because it's such a significant amount of time that you're injured. So I never really had anything that challenged me in that sense. Like, it challenged you. For anybody, it would be so hard to go from being so active, playing so many sports, to now you can't do any of that. Your whole routine has been shifted upside down, right? So that's one of the parts that makes it so hard, because we're doing those things, right? But I think about myself, and even around that age, let's say we'll go 15 to 20, there were so many other things going on in my life at that point that football necessarily wasn't. It was a top priority, but I also saw there's so many other things in life that matters and that's important. So that probably helped me with kind of seeing that there's more than sport, and also, you know, more than, to me, than just sport.
You didn't have to have that injury to make you see that.
But that doesn't mean that that's easier or harder by any means. But yeah, for you, coming out on the other side of that with a much healthier perspective on who you are as a person and as an athlete, and how that's a part of you as a person, not that is your person.
If we want to talk about, okay, how can we have a healthy relationship with our athletic identity without it necessarily having to come from this big moment? You know, we don't actually want it to be, oh, you get injured, now you have to think about who you are without this. Or same thing, like, you retire from your sport, and you, up until this moment before you retire, I'm sure most people don't do this anyway, but like, you're just kind of living in a, I'll deal with that when it happens type scenario. Those two things are going to be really difficult, because, like, injury, obviously we don't have time to prepare for it, because it's not like we're anticipating to happen.
Yeah.
Retirement is kind of different. We can anticipate and prepare for that, but maybe some people don't, because they don't really want to think about it. But like, how can we, without having like these, you know, career altering moments, handle and have a good relationship with our athlete identity? And I think one of the biggest things when I think about, you know, working with athletes, and even for myself, is seeing that these are all the things that I am in sport, but also seeing, okay, everything I am in sport, I am out of my sport.
Yeah.
And everything I am out of my sport, I am in my sport. One of the reasons why I love leaning into being an athlete is you learn like discipline, you learn commitment, you learn to set goals and just like pursue them. You know, you learn to handle disappointment, you learn to handle all the emotions that come in sport. And like, that's something that I'm like, well, those are things I now lean into outside of sport too, because those are like amazing skills to have developed, vice versa. So that's my own personal example. But even when working with people, it's like, okay, describe yourself as an athlete. What are the things that make you a great athlete? Well, take away the word athlete. Those are just characteristics you have. Those are skills you've developed that you can use in anything. Sorry, I asked the question and then I answered it myself.
You did. That's okay. Keep going. Good answer. I mean, that's exactly what I was going to say. what are your qualities? And they're probably very similar to outside and inside of sport. And I think one of the things that's really important to recognize here too is, let's say, handling disappointment or a work ethic. That has nothing to do with sport. So the things that we value in ourselves or as people, it's not tied to what you are doing. It's a part of who you are. So like we can bring those characteristics and values with us to all the different facets of life. And that's so important to remember. And then I also think, what are all the other roles that you have? So like athletic identity and tying too strongly into that can have negative consequences, right? But so can your job identity or being a mother as an identity, because there's so much more to you than your job or being a mom or being an athlete. Someone might have all of those hats at the same time, right? Because you might be a mother, you might be someone that does sports, and you probably have a job. Right. Most likely, but those are just some examples. So also thinking about like that, what are all the other things that you do?
Yeah.
Maybe you're a content creator. Maybe you're a sibling. Maybe you're you're someone's friend. All of those are also part of your identity. So kind of listing that as well. So what are the characteristics? What other identities do you have? So that you can see a bigger picture more than just athletes.
Yeah, I mean, the way I think about it is sport is something that we do, that we participate in. It's not everything we are. The same way, like, your job is something you do.
Yeah.
And it's important to have those things. And if you're listening to this and you play sport and you have a job, those probably take up the majority of your time. So they are a huge part of your time and things you put effort into. But that doesn't mean those are things that maybe for sport, for example, I think a lot of people who keep playing sport into their adult ages and like keep training and pursuing it, like they're passionate about it and they want to do well. And you can apply that to anything. Let's say you're getting to an age where you're like, okay, maybe I can't keep playing at the same intensity. I'm going to retire from my sport. Well, we can find something else that, what else am I passionate about? What else do I want to pour my time into? And we can take everything we've done in sport and do that in something else.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sport is just teaching us how to participate in life.
Yeah, I mean, there's many good things that can come out of sport.
Yeah, when we chose this topic for the podcast, I don't think I realized how strongly I feel about it.
Yeah, you really have just like taken over this episode. I love it.
It's definitely great. Like, I'm sure a lot of people have heard the saying, like, you become the person that you needed. And I think when I think about myself and my ACL, I wish I knew about athletic identity and seeing myself as more than an athlete at that time. It would have made everything so much easier. But then maybe I wouldn't have learned as much from that experience.
That's true. Maybe not. So our hope for you, to all of our lovely listeners, is that maybe you're finding this at the right time in your life. Or maybe you know someone that could benefit from listening to this. So send it on.
Send it to your granny.
Yeah, it's a good episode to talk about, all right? Any closing thoughts?
A space in between challenge.
Yeah, what will that be for this week?
If we want to make it practical, something that I think could be helpful is like to actually write down, how would I describe myself in my sport? Like, what are some of the skills, characteristics that I have learned or brought into this? And then seeing how we are that person outside of our sport as well. Take away the word sport or athlete, and that's who you are. So that's your challenge. Grab a pen and a paper. If you don't have your sport journal yet, you need to figure that out as well. But pen and a paper and write those things down.
Yeah. And then remember, your sport can shape you, but it doesn't have to define you. Deep. So take this time, the space in between this episode and the next, and answer the space in between challenge in your journal that we know you have gotten, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
All right.
See you next time.